BBC, Radio 1 FM, The Bob Harris Show, and Cover My Eyes, one of the songs from the Holidays in Eden LP. That's Marillion. And it's great to be able to say that the whole band is packed into the studio with me tonight. Welcome along, fellas. Very good to see you, I must say.
Pickle, please. I'll hold the sauce.
The spokespeople tonight are Steve Hogarth and Mark Kelly. And, of course, you were in the studio a little while ago with us, Steve.
Yep, yes, yep.
And it's good to see you, Mark, in what is the 10th anniversary of the band.
That's right, we've been out down the pub celebrating our 10th anniversary tonight. We left Ian down there, by the way, actually. Our drummer, he's not with us.
Right. But, you know, Steve, when Steve and I were talking on air about 3 or 4 months ago, it amazed me that Steve had already, by that time, been in the band, what, 2.5 years? You know,
yeah.
This is the passing of time, goes past so fast. And I'm just interested to hear from you in terms of the impact that Steve has made on the band and the changes that have been made since he joined.
Well, it's in all areas, really. I think, you know, I think the sound of the band has changed quite a bit since Steve joined. You know, his singing style is quite different to Fisher's and Steve's songwriting style as well. You know, so he's totally a part of the band now. Now it's been 3.5, nearly 4 years now.
Yeah.
So we don't sort of think about how it used to be. You know, it's quite weird how you become sort of used to it. You know, but
what about the transition that the fans went through between Fish and Steve joining? Has that been a smooth transition?
It's been fairly painless, really. You know, we've had a few comments from people, but mostly when we've been on tour and we've met the fans after shows, it's always been pleasantly surprised sort of vibe, or, you know, it's great, you know, good to see the band still going and it sounds better than ever, all that sort of thing, you know. The albums of the last 2 studio albums with Steve have been well received all round. In fact, we've had some of the best reviews ever, you know. It's all been going great, you know.
Because, I mean, we were talking, Steve, weren't we, when you did come into the studio last time, about the extraordinary loyalty of Marillion fans and the tremendous atmosphere that you get at concerts, generated by that loyalty in many ways.
Yeah, it's incredible. I've you know, as I said before, I've never been to a concert where those atmospheres are set up. So, you know, it was very, very strange for me joining this band to suddenly be met with that, you know, between the eyes, and to be at the focus of it all. It's a fantastic feeling. I don't know what it is. I don't think anybody in the band, we've talked about it, we don't actually understand why, you know, why they take us to their hearts to the extent that they do, but it's almost as though we're a private little, I don't know, I think maybe everybody feels that we somehow belong to them and they're their band a bit more somehow. I don't know. I hope that's how they feel, because
I mean, I sense it on this programme. It's an extraordinary thing, because whenever I play a track of yours, I always get a lot of calls from people just phoning up to say, thanks very much for playing Marillion.
No, that's us.
You know, it's your mum, Steve. But it's great, you know. I mean, it's such a nice feeling that I get off playing your music on air. People genuinely appreciate the fact that it's coming on the radio and call up and say, thanks very much for playing the song. And that's unique.
Great, that's great to hear, actually. We didn't know that, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Also, you know, when we were talking, Steve, we were playing through some of Steve's favourite records and some of the things that you've listened to over the years. And Steve was saying, Mark, you know, we played the Rare Bird.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, the original version, yeah.
And Steve was saying, I've wanted to record that all along, you know. And, of course, you did do.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. In fact, we heard there was a guy who recorded it in Holland. It was a big hit in Holland, but it wasn't by Rare Bird, it was somebody else. And so when we went over there and we did it on a TV show, they said, oh, that's that song by this guy, you know. And we said, oh, no, it was Rare Bird that did it originally, you know. And they were totally shocked. Nobody's heard of Rare Bird in Holland. Yeah.
Because the song is as relevant, maybe even more so now than it was, what, 22, 23 years ago when it was first in the charts.
Absolutely, yeah. The lyric is so true, you know. It's still there, like you say. You know, it's a shame, really, but, yeah.
We ought to hear it, really, hadn't we?
OK. You in tune, Steve?
This is a slightly different version. We've rearranged it slightly because of the lack of drums, so it's a bit shorter and moves about in a more mysterious way.
Marillion playing live on 1FM.
Know when you climb into your bed tonight, and when you lock and bolt the door, Just think of those out in the cold and dark, 'cause there's not enough love to go around. No, there's not enough love to go around. And sympathy is what we need, my friends. And sympathy is what we need. And sympathy is what we need, my friends. 'Cause there's not enough love to go around. No, there's not enough love. Now half the world hates the other half, and half the world has all the food, and half the world lies down and quietly starves, 'cause there's not enough love to go around. And sympathy is what we need, my friends. And sympathy is what we need. And sympathy is what we need, my friends. 'Cause there's not enough love to go around. No, there's not enough love. No, there's not enough love to go around.
BBC Radio 1 FM on this Wednesday morning with Marillion in the studio playing live. The last single that was. Sympathy, of course, was the title of the song. I mean, the Sympathy track is on the Best Of collection, Steve, but essentially you kind of went in and did that as a single, just a single on its own, didn't you?
Yeah, we were asked by EMI if we'd record a couple of new songs to go, you know, like a pilot single and 2 tracks to go with the compilation album. And at that point I think we had 2.5 weeks before we went on away on an American tour. So it was like, oh my God, how are we going to write and record 2 songs in 2.5 weeks? So I'd been banging on about Sympathy, as you know, for years and years. So I said, what if we were to cover Sympathy and just write one? Then we'd be in with the chance. So we wrote a song called I Will Walk on Water, and I ran off and took an original version of Sympathy, which I'd only actually got from a DJ in Berlin, Golanya Kaspari gave it to me. I didn't even have the record in my collection, but it had stuck in my mind, you know, for so long. So I ran off home with it and changed the key of the chorus and moved a few things around, you know, to make it more comfortable, and we did it. We did it with Chris Kimsey, actually, who'd recorded the band's albums before I joined. He'd done Misplaced Childhood and Clutching at Straws.
Yeah. Because, you know, one of the things I think we've lost over the years in some respects, you know. I mean, I always thought around the late 50s and into the 60s that the energy of pop music was always revolving around the singles charts. You know, you got the Beatles going into the studio every 13 weeks or so to put out a new single. It was one of the things that Brian Epstein always insisted on, wasn't it? That they put out a new single every 13 weeks or so. And a lot of those singles never went on to albums. I mean, it wasn't a situation then where a band would go into the studio, record an album, and then begin to select singles that would come off that album through the next sort of 12 to 18 months. And I always think it's a shame these days that people don't go in specifically to record singles like you did with Sympathy.
I suppose it comes down to that commercial thing where singles don't really make money for record companies or artists for that matter, and so to put a single out on its own is a bit of a pointless exercise from that point of view, because usually you put singles out to actually promote albums, obviously. So you can see why it doesn't happen anymore, but like you say, it's a shame.
It is a shame, isn't it? Because I mean,
well, you get bands like Tears for Fears and Pink Floyd and people like that now who don't have a single out for 15 years or something because it's taken them that long to make an album. So from that point of view, it's definitely not a good thing. I think if you're out there and you've got a favourite band that you know you're passionate about, you're bursting to hear new music from them. And 2 years in between albums is too long to wait, isn't it?
Yeah. Or in some cases these days, 5 or 6 years between. I mean, the Bruce Springsteen situation, Lionel Richie, people like this who do wait a long, long time before putting anything else out.
Well, it takes a long time to tune a grand piano.
Yes.
Those big, long strings.
How did the American tour go, by the way? Because again, when we were talking, Steve, you were saying that it remains a sort of relatively uncharted territory for you in terms of great success. Did the tour help to start to put that right and redress the balance?
I think so, yeah. To our amazement, the ticket sales were all up on the last time we'd been there, which I think we're probably the only band that sold more tickets this year, in America than last tour. So that was very encouraging. And we just seemed to, hit a gear in America last time. The band was playing really well. And we were all on this bus with the crew as well, in between shows, travelling. We were all in bed together, Bob. So there was a great sense of sort of camaraderie. And it was the most enjoyable tour. And fortunately, the press seemed to get it as well, because the reviews of the New York and the Los Angeles show were the best reviews I've ever seen, really, of anyone. It was incredible. I had to put them up on the wall in the Louvre. It was great fun. There's still only little clubs, but we were sort of flattening them night after night.
Yeah.
It was a great feeling.
Because, I said to Steve when we were talking, when Steve was in the studio last time, Mark, as to why Steve thought it was that Marillion haven't broken through as big in America as one would have expected, because it seems to me, the music's just so right for the American market, and it surprises me that the band hasn't had bigger success over there.
Yeah, well, that's the strange thing. We've always been encouraged to go back there because everybody says, that's heard the band, that's, great for America, it's great songs, all the rest of it. But I think that's the key. There's a lot of people that haven't actually heard the band, and to break through in the States, you've either got to tour there continuously, which we can't do because we would actually neglect Europe if we did that, or have luck with radio play, or get things moving that way. So I think there is a bit of luck involved, and we've just had a bit of bad luck in that respect. But, we still go back there, and like Steve says, the last tour was really good for us. So, in fact, I think we're planning to go back in October this year, after we've been to South America, where the band plays stadiums. So, it's a lucky world, isn't it?
Because, it is incredible in South America. You hear about crowds of 200,000 people and stuff watching gigs down there.
We've never played to an audience that big, but I think 100,000 is probably about as many as you can take in, in terms of, the size of the audience. It's just a sea of people, And
they really go for it. They don't just turn up and watch, they dance, and the sense of, watching 80 or 90,000 people, all of one, spiritually of one kind of, on one vibe, all partying, it's really, really, it quite overcomes you.
Do you still get nervous under those sort of stuff? I compared Queen's concert in Hyde Park in 1976, and there are 125,000 people there. And from the stage, you're looking out, and you're seeing people right to the horizon line. It's an amazing sort of feeling that you get as you're just describing, Steve, on stage there. Do you get, how do you feel just a few seconds before you're going on stage, Mark?
It's difficult to describe. Sometimes we can be playing a tiny club, and I can be nervous. Other times we can be playing to 30. Well, we did a gig to 30 or 40,000 people last weekend, and it was, using monitors from in fact, we were playing in a place called Estonia, and the monitors and everything were all, homegrown, so... And, we just went on and did it. It wasn't like a nerve-wracking experience at all, but sometimes it can be very... But it's good when you get that buzz, you still get the old rush of adrenaline before we go on. And if things go wrong, then you get nervous.
That's what it is, I guess, though, isn't it? It's the adrenaline, It's not nervousness, it's excitement.
That's right. If everything goes smoothly, then usually it's great fun, It's only when things go horribly wrong that nervousness creeps in. Yeah.
It's all right for him. I'm at the front in the middle.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong person. Really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm also interested in, you know, hearing your views about the writing in the band, Mark, and the way that you approach the songwriting and preparation for albums as you're beginning to think about the time that it's time to go back into the studio. What's the sort of routine? How does this...
Well, we're actually doing it at the moment. We're at the stage where we've got like a little studio we work in, and we just get together, you know, Monday to Friday basically, and jam and try different things. You know, like the five of us all jam together, and like any ideas we come up with, we can stick on a tape and then sort of review them later on, and those ideas then become the basis of the songs. And in the meantime, Steve will do some stuff at home, come up with lyrics. There's a guy called John Helmer who's written some lyrics for us on the last 2 albums. So he sends through lyrics on the old fax machine, you know. And basically it's a sort of like a 5-way process, really, you know. Each one of us comes up with various ideas, and we just knock them around.
Yeah.
You know, I think the thing is, it seems to be getting harder all the time, you know. Like we find now, out of maybe, on the last album, we had about 40 hours worth of tape recordings, of which we cleaned 50 minutes, you know. So that's, you know, the sort of throwaway rate is getting higher, you know, I suppose, as we become more picky about what we do, you know.
I always think it must be a nightmare, you know, recording a tour and then trying to work out from it what material is going to be used on a live album. Because, I mean, you know, there's hours and hours and hours and so many different versions of each of the songs.
We've never had the luxury of being able to do that, where, you know, you record every gig and then pick the songs. We know, we like, the 2 live albums we've made, it's been 5 or 6 gigs on a tour, and that's it, you know, because of the cost. But, yes, it would be nice to.
And, I mean, when you're working on lyrics, Steve, do you have sort of, as it were, working titles and scanning... you know, word sounds that you're beginning to... Because I'm thinking about this famous quote of Paul McCartney, and, you know, when he was writing Yesterday, and he hadn't got the title or the word yesterday yet, but he got the notes, and scrambled eggs was what fitted, and that's what he sort of worked around before coming up with Yesterday.
Great.
And you hear about Cole Porter getting a title first and the end line of a song first. Before doing anything else, because then you've got a strong title, you've got a great finish, and then you work sort of backwards from that. I mean, do you have a sort of formula by which you work in that kind of way?
No, I'm more of a sort of brainstorm person. I've either got nothing or loads, and I tend to write in just streams of thought or comment or imagery that come to me completely out of nowhere. That I wrestle to, you know, I rush to scramble down. Either when I've nearly killed myself driving on a number of occasions, trying to write down things that I then later couldn't understand because my hand was shaking so badly on the M40 doing 90 miles an hour. You know, trying to write the word cucumber with a ballpoint pen. It's quite difficult. You know, it's dangerous. In fact, I wouldn't advise you to do it at home. But I tend to write like that and then go back to it later, and there'll be, you know, little diamonds in the dust, you know,
so
twinkle.
Do you have these moments of eureka inspiration?
Yes, yeah. I mean, Waiting to Happen on the last album was a good example of that, because we'd actually recorded the album and I still hadn't got a lyric for it that I liked. I had lyrics for it, but I didn't think they were quite right, very strong, and we'd started mixing the album and I still hadn't got it. And then I was driving in from where I used to live in Windsor, and I was going around the Hogarth roundabout. This is the truth. This is the absolute truth. It sounds like my press department made this one up, but I was going around the Hogarth. In fact, I've never told anyone this. I was going around the Hogarth roundabout at Chiswick, and it just bing, and the whole thing opened. The key that unlocked it all just opened as I was there, and by the time I got to the studio, I was ready to do the lead vocal. I've got it. You know? Yeah. So it's nice when that happens, but of course it doesn't happen all the time. Yeah,
with scribbled notes from behind the wheel as you were driving to the studio.
Yeah. You're under arrest.
You must play another song for us while you're here. What's the second one going to be?
This is an old one, actually. This is a song called Kayleigh, which I think if anybody's heard anything by us, it will be this. Well, that's it, really, isn't it?
People say to me, "Oh, I bet, you know, bet you get fed up with having to sing the old stuff. You know, don't you feel you have to sing that because it was the big hit?" But I actually thoroughly enjoy singing it. It's a lovely song. Just wanted to say that in case anybody thinks, "Oh, we're making him sing that."
It is a beautiful song. Kayleigh, Marillion live on 1FM.
Melting on a playground wall. Do you remember your escapes from moon-washed college halls? Do you remember the cherry blossom in the market square? Do you remember? I thought it was confetti in our hair. By the way, didn't I break your heart? Please excuse me, I never meant to break your heart. So sorry, I never meant to break your heart. Oh, but you broke mine. Kayleigh, is it too late to say I'm sorry? And Kayleigh, can we get it together again? I just can't go on pretending that it came to a natural end. Kayleigh, oh, I never thought I'd miss you. And Kayleigh, I thought that we'd always stay friends. We said our love would last forever, so how did it come to this bitter end? Do you remember barefoot on the lawn with shooting stars? Do you remember loving on the floor in Belside's Park? Do you remember dancing in stilettos in the snow? Do you remember? You never understood I had to go. By the way, didn't I break your heart? Please excuse me, I never meant to break your heart. So sorry, I never meant to break your heart. Oh, but you broke mine. Kayleigh, I just want to say I'm sorry, but Kayleigh, I'm too scared to pick up the phone to hear you found another lover to patch up our broken home. Kayleigh, I'm still trying to write that love song. Kayleigh, it's more important to me now you're gone. Well, maybe it'll prove that we were right, or it'll prove that I was wrong.
Round of applause from this end of the studio. Marillion playing live on 1FM tonight. Something, Mark, you said earlier that, you know, I found very interesting. In terms of production, you know, when you were just sort of running through Kayleigh, you said, hang on a second, I'll come in halfway through, otherwise, you know, you're talking about dynamics and...
Right, yeah.
Light and shade in production, I've always thought, is a very, very important aspect of production, and it seems to me something that's been lost a bit over recent years. I mean, you even go back to somebody like Phil Spector, who's one of the definitive producers, and there was always an aspect of light and shade, you know, with You've Lost That Loving Feeling by the Righteous Brothers. You've got that huge wall of sound, but even at the end, it all breaks down right to just one voice and then builds back up again to create that feeling of light and shade. When you're, you know, approaching a song in the studio and you're thinking about the production of a song, is light and shade, for want of a better way of putting it, an important aspect of the production sound?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's something that we think about at all stages, actually, not just when we're recording. You know, we go through the process of arranging the songs. We think about the dynamics and light and shade, as you call it. I think it's funny how the sort of trends that studio producers go through, you know, in the 60s, early 70s, it was placement. Everything was like hard left, hard right, you know, things were placed. And then it was like, you know, big stereo sounds. Everything was right across the stereo spectrum. And, you know, now it's, I don't know, you know, I think it's good that people are actually getting back to just recording stuff with, you know, voice and acoustic guitar or piano and voice or whatever, you know, and they're not having to overproduce things just for the sake of making something sound big because they can, you know.
Do you think technology has maybe got in the way a bit too much? I mean, we're talking with Pop Staples on the programme last week, and he was talking about his days at the VJ record label in Chicago, and he was saying, you know, in those days things were recorded basically on a wire, you know, with one guy and one tape machine, 2 tracks or 4 tracks. And he said, why is it that we can't get the magic on our recordings that we used to be able to get in those days?
I think subconsciously you can hear something that's real as opposed to something that's been manufactured. I actually believe that is the case. Just as if you eat an apple pie, you can tell the difference subconsciously as to whether real apples went in or whether they put some gunk in and put real apple flavouring in. You can just tell. And I think there is a danger as you start to drift away from a real way of recording. You know, and as you say, you know, 1 mic or 2 mics and a band in a room, you start to drift away from what is real. I think that somehow comes across.
Because there's a preciousness sometimes about newer recordings that tends to keep you slightly at arm's length.
It's something to do with the fact that people feel this need to iron out all the mistakes and all the slight lumps or, you know, and in doing that they remove all the spirit and the soul of the song and any spontaneity or things that might have happened. You know, like we just played a couple of songs then, plenty of lumps and bumps in those.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
But, if you recorded an album like that, you know, I think you'd get something which was different to what most people are doing. The thing is, it's difficult to actually have the self-discipline to say, right, that's it, that's a great take, despite, you know, there's a bit dodgy there or whatever, you know, and stopping rather than...
This MTV Unplugged series, I think, is a good idea.
Well, it's...
Doing similar to what you're doing now, and it's playing acoustically, you know, songs that are familiar, but... you know, without the electronic instruments, without necessarily the big production, just going in, picking up a guitar and playing.
Well, then all you've got is the song. You know, you've got a naked song without any posh clothes on it, you know, to maybe make it look a bit more impressive, but nonetheless cover it up to some extent. And so it then boils down to, well, is it a good song? You know, and you can't take... I mean, there are certain songs you can't take and just play them acoustically. They don't work. And you know, the very, very best songs tend to stand up just as well if you know hum them in a loo, you know, with unaccompanied. Really, I mean, I tend to sing "I Only Have Eyes for You" when I'm in subways because it just sounds great on its own. You don't need anything else around it.
Reminds me of that old Trogs video for Wild Thing. What's it when they're in that tube station? I can't remember. It was in central London, with Reg Presley and all the striped gear that they used to have. I'm digressing.
No, it sounds great. That's a great idea for a video.
What, Reg Presley?
Buskers in a subway. You can have people walking by throwing you money as you're playing, you know.
10th anniversary this year. How are you celebrating? What gigs have you got coming up?
We started off with the idea of trying to do sort of one in each of the European countries. It's been a bit difficult, really, from the point of view of routing and stuff, and also halls availability and stuff. But we're doing Wembley.
What do you mean routing exactly?
Wembley on the 5th of September. On the 3rd of September, we're playing in Holland at the Ahoy, which is like a similar sort of gig. There's one on the 2nd in Cologne. So we're sort of doing, you know, like a gig in each European country. There's in fact, when do we go out? Tomorrow we go to Mexico.
First thing in the morning.
For a show. Yeah, I should say later this day, shouldn't I?
In a minute.
In a minute. We're leaving for the airport shortly.
How's the family, by the way, Steve? Because, you know, your wife's been poorly. Is she getting better now?
Oh, yes. She's been on the strongest antibiotics known to man for a whole week, and they seem to have put her back on the mend. I think I'll probably collapse any second.
It's a busy job looking after the family, isn't it?
Oh, God.
I mean, that's a demanding job.
You can't begin to describe what it's like looking after a 4-year-old girl and an 8-month-old boy when you spend so little time at home normally that you haven't a clue how to do it. I've aged about 2 years in a week.
And you were mentioning the new album, the fact that you're working on the new album now, Mark. I mean, at what stage is that?
Really, at the very beginning of the writing process. We've got all these gigs to do, and South America in September, and then probably North America in October. it's unlikely we'll have it finished before Christmas. So the writing, I mean. So I think we're looking at next year sometime before it's released.
Right.
Probably this summer, but we're going to have a single out every 13 weeks.
Yeah, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Absolutely right. I'll be your Brian Epstein. Listen, it's been great to see you tonight. Thank you very much for coming in live and playing for us. The gig, once again, September the 5th at Wembley Arena. And, of course, No One Can is coming out as a single again, which nibbled away at the charts, didn't it, last year?
Did it? It nibbled.
Yeah, it nibbled.
It bit the back of the chart's leg, I think, quite hard, actually. But unfortunately, the chart's leg struggled and it had to let go. So it's going to have a go at its other leg, I think.
Well, I sense the Rottweiler teeth this time.
Hopefully get up to the upper thigh this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot. Good luck with the tours. And we'll see you at Wembley on the 5th of September. And let's round off with the new single. This is No One Can. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.